Welcome to the council meeting at the council chambers, Tuesday, April 23rd at 6 o'clock. Actually, let's take a little peek here, 6:05, very good. Call to order, roll call. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C, identify possible conflicts of interest. Seeing none, on to item D. Public comment period, correspondence. At this time, I will recognize those members of the public that have indicated a desire to address the council. Upon recognition by me, persons may address the council, first stating their name and address. The council may act on emergency matters introduced by members of the body, and you will have 5 minutes. As soon as I find my orange sheet, which is way under everything. First up is Rachel. You'll have to pronounce your last name. I apologize. I know it, but I just can't say it right now. Stanlowski.
Yeah, good Polish last name. So my name is Rachel Stankowski, and I live at 1617 Divine Drive in Marshfield. In 2022, I was appointed to serve on the Everett Rail Marshfield Public Library Board. Director Jill Porter and her staff do an incredible job, and it's really been a pleasure to be part of this board so that I can support their work and this vital community resource. I was very fortunate that when I joined the board, that I had the opportunity to learn from several tenured members who've dedicated years, and in several cases even decades, to the city of Marshfield by serving on the library board. Recently, 2 library board members reached the end of their terms and submitted letters requesting reappointment. While one was reappointed, Board Vice President Zin Rupel, who has served for 12 years, was not. I am here today to express my disappointment regarding this decision. I understand that appointment recommendations are presented to the board at the mayor's prerogative, but if we as a city intend to encourage civic engagement, it seems we ought to be demonstrating that we value longevity. Further, department leadership should be consulted to ensure that citizens appointed to board positions are well suited to do so. In the case of tenured individuals, by providing information about their efficacy in the position to date, and in the case of potential new members, by providing an assessment of the individual's potential investment in the service. I know that in Zin's case, Jill would have given her enthusiastic endorsement, as would the rest of the board. As important as it is to engage additional members of our community, it is just as, if not more important, to thank those who are already engaged for their service, to be grateful for their willingness to continue, and to recognize the value of their institutional knowledge and commitment to the city of Marshfield. I would like to request that you reconsider Zin's appointment to the library board, but I recognize that this may not be possible at this point. I do hope that the process moving forward for all appointed positions will more strongly recognize potential board members' history of commitment and involvement. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Our second, Bill Panker.
Good evening, Bill Penker, 600 Sycamore Avenue. My comments have been prompted by the dialogue that occurred at the last meeting between Alderman Wehrman and Communication Director Tom Wells.
Excuse me, Bill, is your microphone on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you for bringing it over. Thank you.
Dating back to 2016, I have expressed at these meetings the view that municipal communications must make use of the opportunities contained within the communication spectrum. Print, AM, FM, and low-power FM radio, commercial and community access television, and various platforms such as websites, email, text messages, Nixle, and social media, and not depend upon one part of that spectrum. There is a forgotten area of that spectrum that needs more attention: person-to-person, face-to-face dialogue. I have lived in Marshfield for 35 years. To the best of my recollection, I do not recall an alderman walking the neighborhoods in my district, meeting the residents, discussing issues, answering questions, or just conversing with them. Our aldermanic districts are not so large that an alderman could not make periodic visits to the neighborhoods. This also appears to be a message that was lost by some of the candidates for school board. In the past, we saw listening sessions sponsored by various aldermen in an effort to connect with their constituents. Today, they seem to have been forgotten. And have we lost ground level dialogue? The person-to-person contact, the face-to-face dialogue has implications for agenda item T, your consideration of appointments. In your efforts to accomplish the mission and vision, goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, as well as the business of the city, you need almost 90 people to come forward at various times and say, I'm willing to serve on a board, commission, or committee. And if I've counted right, you'll consider approximately 20 this evening. The mayor can do a preliminary scrutiny of those who wish to serve, but the ultimate decision is yours, yes or no. Do you simply look at letters of interest or those of introduction, or do you reach out to the candidate to discuss such issues as dedication, the ability to attend meetings, background, technical knowledge? And if a board, commissioner, committee oversees an activity or facility of special interest, have you reached out to members of those special constituencies to learn their views about the 4 topics just mentioned? Have you gained insight into their level of respect and trust for the nominee? If the body oversees employees, have you reached out to them to gauge their levels of respect and trust for the potential member of that board, commission, or committee? And has that been done without fear of retaliation to the employee? A mayor does not deserve his or her appointments. The public deserves the best appointments. That starts with the mayor and ends with you. And at a time when we see across the country supposedly nonpartisan local positions and nonpartisan local government bodies becoming more partisan, sometimes with personal partisanships, the nominations deserve the same level of discussion and debate that you give to other matters such as the budget. You must not forget ground level communication. It gives you a sense of the public. It's where all communications start. And if you haven't been there, how will you vote tonight? Yes, no, or not at all?
Thank you, Bill. Any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comment? Any other citizen comment? Seeing none, move on to item E, approval of minutes, April 9th, 2024 regular meeting, and April 16th, 2024 organizational meeting. We have a motion by Alderman Giles, second by Alderman Fire. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Item F, staff updates.
I'm not aware of any this evening, Mayor.
Mayor's comments. First, I would like to reach out to Resource Officer Brody Erickson and his family. Please accept my sympathy and prayers for the loss of your wife and mother, Brody. Second item on my agenda will be the proclamation Arbor Day celebration. And I always stand to do these because when I read them at an event, we're always standing. Proclamation Arbor Day celebration. Whereas 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas Arbor Day is observed with recognition of the importance of our Wisconsin landscape. And whereas it's beneficial to develop an awareness among our citizens of the role trees have played in our past, the present, and our future lives. And whereas Friday, April 26, 2024, is recognized as Arbor Day in Wisconsin in the promotion of tree growth and culture. And whereas Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, is the day the city celebrates Arbor Day by planting 140 trees in Brain Park. So now, therefore, I, Lois T. Strake, Mayor of the City of Marshfield, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, in celebration of Arbor Day in Marshfield, Wisconsin. Further, in the city of Wisconsin, I urge all citizens to likewise plant a tree for the benefit or beautification of our city and future generations. I witness hereby I have set my seal and hand this day, April 23rd, 2024. Lois T. Strake. Next, council comments. Seeing none, move on to item I, city administrators updates.
Thank you, Mayor. Just the one tonight. We had a special meeting at 5 o'clock this evening on council orientation. We'll have another one at 5 o'clock before the next regular meeting. That'll be on Tuesday, May 14th. That one will be in respect to the 2025 budget, the preparation, kind of getting ourselves off to an early start. So we'll be having that meeting from 5 o'clock until approximately 6:30, a little bit before that. 6:30 will be the regular meeting that evening. At the 5 o'clock meeting, we'll have Jennifer Selinsky, our finance director, will be here, and I'll be obviously talking as well as we kind of lay the groundwork for some of the challenges and opportunities facing us in the next budget and get some council input and some feedback at that time. So again, for the 14th of May, it will be 5 o'clock, special meeting, 6:30, the regular meeting.
Thank you, City Administrator Barg. Item J, reports from commissions, boards, and committees. And as Steve had mentioned, please, if there's something that comes up, it would be great for the public to hear, because there's a lot of great things happening with your boards and commissions and committees. Item K, consent agenda, meeting minutes reports. Alderman Giles motions, Alderman Fires seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes, thank you. And we can skip item L because we have no action removed from the consent agenda. Item M, resolution 2024-18, authorizing the assurance and sale of up to 447,514 water system revenue bonds, series 2024, and providing for other details and covenances which respect thereto, presented by Nicholas Cum, General Manager. Nick, take it away. Nick, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're up.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. For some reason you cut out for the last minute, the last couple words there, so I apologize for that. But thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight I'm presenting resolution 2024-18. This is the closing document for the safe drinking water loan that we received for the temporary PFAS water treatment facility. You may remember back in January of 2023. I came before the Common Council and asked for approval to begin that process, along with the Utility Commission. And now the project has been, we've designed it, we've procured it, we've installed it, and it's up and running down in the South Well Field. And with the project wrapping up, we're looking to move forward with closing up the loan documents tonight. In your packet was all the documents, but essentially the recap on the loan itself is overall the project was $1.553 million. Of that, a little over $1 million will be principal forgiveness, which means it's essentially a grant, but we only have to pay the balance, which is the $447,514. The interest rate on that borrowing is 2.145%, and it's for a 5-year term. The term is based on the length of the asset or the temporary facility that we put in. And one of the questions that came up during our commission meeting last week was, was this something that we had to take a loan out for? And at the end of the day, ultimately getting the 70% principal forgiveness is a benefit. Obviously now we don't have to, ratepayers don't have to pay for that amount of the project. And additionally, the DNR, this is like a revolving loan program. So the dollars, the interest that they accrue is used then for future borrowing, and they won't let us pay the debt down right away. We have to go through the process of repaying it over the 5 years. The commission, as I mentioned, did approve this back last Monday and recommended that the Common Council approve it. So I'm recommending that the Common Council move forward with approving resolution 2024-18.
We have a motion by Alderman Stauber, second by Alderman O'Reilly. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Item N, second reading of ordinance number 1509, amending section 3-66 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to abolish the audit committee, presented by Ed Wagner, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. As I laid out in our initial hearing on this resolution last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. One of the problems that we did not foresee with an audit committee was finding qualified people. I'm told that there are qualified people out there who would be willing to do this, but to this date, they haven't come on board. For that reason, I would like to abolish the committee, at least for now, because I don't think we're ready for it yet. I don't think we've reached the level of sophistication that it's going to take to get it. There was a big misunderstanding about what the audit committee was going to do. And as some of you may note, the personal media got a hold of it and twisted it into something that it was not meant to be. So I'm asking for your input on this to take it off of the books so that we're not violating anything. We don't have a dead ordinance sitting there. And if it ever comes back, we know what changes need to be made. So for that, I would ask for your permission to abolish the audit committee.
We have a motion by Alderman Giles, second by Alderman Fire. Is there any discussion on this matter? Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I'm just questioning, is it a violation to have that sitting open, or would it make sense to just leave it not filled at this point with the intention that later on it will be filled? I just don't know where that stands.
Go ahead.
I'll do something I'm not accustomed to doing, and that is yield to the attorney.
I don't have a copy of the ordinance itself. My recollection is it set up the audit committee, it gave them a task. So that means that if it's out there, and I'm going off of my memory of this now, that means that it should be in existence and filling that task that you have. So if you're not going to do that, you either have to, I suppose another way to do it would be to, pass a resolution that you're not going to fulfill that at this point. But the proper way to do it would be to remove it from the code, because it is a code requirement that it actually engage in the action. You're filling that role. You're failing to fill that role, meaning appoint members to it, and that those members to carry out their duties would in effect be violating our code by not doing what they're required to do.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
The alternative that we have here is to give either the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee or a subcommittee of the authority to give a more robust look at the final audit figures and have them bring it back to the council and along with the auditors and say, now please explain this to us and please explain that. I think I mentioned in the initial procedure on this and in the initial recommendation, there were some things in the normal audit that I hate to be demeaning about this, but even we should have caught. We're not trained auditors, but there were things in there that if you looked at it seriously for 5 minutes, you would realize that we had a problem somewhere in the situation. And since that time, it's only gotten the technicalities, the technical requirements of an audit have only gotten worse. So I'd like to take it off the books for now, if and when if I have people breaking down the door to say, please let me serve on this committee, I will humbly offer it to them with as much humbleness as I can possibly gather. So anyway, that's what I'd like to do with this. Thank you very much.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Item O, second reading of ordinance number 1505, creating requirements for promote remote participation in meetings of the council and city committees, boards, and commissions, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the last time this was talked about was back on February 13th, so a little bit over 2 months ago. But at that time, we've been talking over a couple meetings about enacting an ordinance that would give the parameters under which we would allow remote participation in meetings. Not to go over the whole scenario again that I talked about when we first presented it, but just a little piece of it. We did not allow remote participation in meetings up until COVID. You had to be here in person. And then when COVID broke, the governor actually directed that to the greatest degree possible that he wanted to see no in-person participation because of the spread of the virus. So a lot of communities, of course, complied as you would expect. But then as time passed, and the pandemic wound down, most communities adopted policies governing and setting parameters and structure for what would be permitted as far as remote participation, under what circumstances, what would be expected of the remote participant, and so forth. We, however, did not. So this came up with an issue, a year or so ago about, where we actually had to close down a closed session because of that. Had us all looking at each other with, kind of trepidation as to what happened next. The city clerk had been at a conference at that time, learned a little bit about what other communities were doing, and we started on the road of the plans to adopt our own ordinance that would allow remote participation, but put some guidelines around it. So going back to February 13th again, at that time, after discussion, it had been kind of identified by the body that there were 2 or 3 items that they were concerned about. Among them were how often a person could do that. What about reconnecting if you lost connection? Your internet went down or whatever, and you were out for a while, then you came back. And there were some other things talked about as well. At that time, it was remanded back to staff. We were asked to take another look at it and come back with, perhaps a revised version. The city clerk and I have met and talked about this. We've looked at it, at all the different issues and concerns that were raised. And after talking about it between the two of us, we kind of came to the best idea that really we would leave the ordinance intact, basically, which is why this is a second reading again and not going back to a first reading, but take out the one paragraph. It's paragraph 4B on utilization. That's the one we talked about quite a bit in terms of, could you be remote for more than 3 weeks of meetings? So that paragraph has been pulled entirely now from the current version you're looking at tonight. Everything else, including the reconnection expectations, has been left intact. So with that in mind, that one change, the removal of paragraph 4B, staff would recommend approval of ordinance number 1505, creating parameters for remote participation.
We have a motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Fire. Alderman O'Reilly.
Thank you. As I remember this, I think the last time it was brought back, we were going to break this out into multiple different sections to discuss each. I'm a little surprised that it didn't come back that way, but I can move forward with it. The only issue I really noticed with reading this was it picks out if someone drops out or misses any portion of the meeting, that basically they can't vote, they can't participate in discussion, if I remember.
Of that item?
Yeah, I think that should also extend to people in person, because if someone uses the restroom, if someone's having side discussions, we have the same issue. So I would strongly suggest, I guess, that moving forward, that should actually apply to everyone.
And I think the discussion we've had with the city attorney and the city clerk has kind of pointed in that direction, that if you miss the bulk of a conversation because you're out in the lobby here or at the bathroom or wherever, that you really ought not be participating in that vote ultimately. So even though I don't think that's written down anywhere, that principle still would probably apply, correct?
That principle would probably apply.
Well,
I agree with that, but
I wanted to look at you for that moment.
so, this happens. This has happened. And the question is, have you participated or not? Do you have enough information to make that decision? I think this is one of those things that your absence from that meeting at that point, keep in mind, one of the things that Jess has to keep record of the come-ins and going. So if what happens is you're having a discussion on a subject, you leave the room to go to the bathroom or to, take an emergency call or whatever, and you come back and vote on something, it's definitely can be criticized by your constituents. So I think that's a problem. We don't have it as a rule, though, that you can't vote. It's not part of what this ordinance is. It would really be a matter of more of a matter of a personal, decorum procedure. So if you were to do that, I don't think there's a way that this body could stop you from doing it. That's the way I would say it. Now, if you wanted to do that, this body could actually pass a rule. I think ultimately, if you were to leave for a restroom and you come back and somebody called a point of order, it would then be left to the chair to decide whether that person gets to vote or not, based on simply, was it a proper procedure and were you here for enough of that decision? Because you could envision, right, something where we've talked about something for 25 minutes and you leave and you miss 5 minutes of it. I think at that point, it becomes a point of order. Have you been or left this enough to have not been participating in it? It certainly is a breach, though, in protocol and disrespectful to your other members to miss a portion of it and then come back and vote. So I'm going to put it that way. But you right now do not have a rule that automatically would prohibit you from voting.
But I think to go to Councilmember O'Reilly's point, if I'm understanding you correctly, it would seem like the same principle would apply whether you left the physical room or whether you left your computer wherever you were at remotely. And it does say, what we're putting forward right now under the reconnection in the new 4D does say a member will not be permitted to participate in discussion or vote on any agenda item if they have missed any portion of discussion on that agenda item. So I think that's where you're trying to draw a parallel here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess there's two ways to look at it. And if we're going to implement this for the remote, and in the event that you're in person, it's the chair's call, why would we not just make it the chair's call throughout? Because I mean, it should be something standard. It shouldn't be handled in completely separate ways. You could have a situation where someone dropped out for 5 seconds. And they can't be part of that anymore. It's just kind of concerning to me that we're handling the two situations differently. So I don't know what everybody else feels, but.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes. Item P, first reading of ordinance number 1510 to repeal and replace Chapter 9 of the Marshfield Municipal Code, licenses and permits, presented by Jessica Schiffrel, City Clerk.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm still recording that vote.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, so tonight I have before you the first reading of ordinance 1510. This would be a complete repeal and replace of Chapter 9, which is all of licensing and permits. It is a very large chapter. I've spoken with a few of you over the course of this week with some questions on it. Essentially, there are a few different topics being covered here. First off, this chapter of code has not been completely reviewed since 1982. There have been several changes throughout the years, but it's never been completely looked at and reevaluated. My predecessor started several times, but as you've all commented this week, it is a lot. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of statute references. So the first process was to go through every single statute reference in this code and make sure that's still the appropriate statute and that the wording is still quoted correctly. So some of the changes you see are simply updating changes in statute over the last couple of decades. Beyond that, there was a very large change at the state level. It was adopted officially in December, Act 73, which completely changed many, many laws regarding liquor licensing and cigarette, tobacco, electronic vaping devices. So many of the red line changes you see are direct impacts of the changes to the state law that we have to adopt. We have to enforce those. So we're making sure that we are in line with what the state is asking of us. A couple of other things. I'm going to do these out of order because I have a feeling there might be a couple questions on them, and some will be me and some might be Hap. So I'll look at him. We have also then, one of the main changes is developed regulations for food trucks in the city of Marshfield. Last year, we brought before you a zoning change allowing food trucks in farmers markets. I just want to point out that is completely separate provision. That's a completely separate chapter. That is zoning code that had nothing to do with licensing. As of now, today, right now, we do not have anything in writing regulating food trucks. We have common practices that we've been adhering to. We have some policies loosely with park and rec and rentals and using the park facilities and where food trucks might be able to park. But we don't have solid regulation. And then also the fire department regulations are enforced. So this is really trying to get all of that together in one place. I've worked with surrounding municipalities to try to have some consistency for the business owners for these food trucks who are traveling from municipality to municipality. Are we doing something at least similar and expecting what other municipalities are, just to make it easier on them? I've worked with Kaylee at Main Street, who has worked with a lot of the business owners downtown to make sure we've addressed the concerns, because initially when this area was being developed, it was concerns of business owners with where food trucks were parking, where they were taking up parking spaces, blocking entrances to their businesses, mobile food truck customers coming in and using bathrooms of businesses. So we're really trying to address and make sure we're putting all of that in, again, one spot. There is a provision that's changed. I can give you the page number if you want it, that would allow issuing a license to a business if the property owner has outstanding debt but has a current payment plan that they are fulfilling. So if we have a business owner who has already made an arrangement with the county for delinquent property taxes, they are making those payments, they have not missed any payments, we are making a change that would propose that we could still issue that business license. Now, if they are not making those payments, we would come before you and we would have that hearing. There's also a change for clarifying the assessment of demerit points. This is the part that I actually will ask Hap to explain the underage one violation, the underage drinking party situation.
But you want me literally to do that?
I want you to do that, please, because that's
I don't know if you need an explanation for it. I mean, so previously what it said was that if you had one incident that there was underage drinking, that it would, no matter how many people were involved or the circumstances involved, it would only be treated as one violation under the points accumulation. And for various reasons that was, proposed to be altered. One of the reasons being that we only count violations under Chapter 125 if there's 2 violations in a 1-year period of time. So you could have a situation where somebody literally decides to have an underage drinking party at the bar, serve everybody there. You have 10, 15 people, and it gets treated simply as the same as some kid slipping by the, card checker or something along those lines. Now, the body, any of you that have sat on that body, the JL committee, are familiar that you have some latitude in terms of how you want to decide whether or not a violation is going to be treated and how many points are going to be assessed. So you can take each individual situation into account on a factual basis. In addition, you'll notice that one of the other changes that is in this, or certainly a recent change that came down by state statute, is that whenever you're looking at changing licensure, you have to take into account or allow the license holder the opportunity to explain a violation, to show that they may have been rehabilitated, and to give any mitigating factors. So there is a lot of latitude for someone who's facing points as part of this and or revocation or suspension of a liquor license to explain that and get their points amended downward. So with all of that in mind, it didn't make sense to carry out this sort of complete prohibition against looking at a situation that might be very extreme and create a problem or consideration for accumulation of points where there are multiple people, regardless of the time span and regardless of the number of people. That same thing, if it all happened as of part of one event, that was very, very broadly used to protect the situation where you have 2 or 3 kids coming in, but not contemplating something more complex.
So with all of that, if you have any questions for me, this is a first reading. We would look for second reading at the May 14th meeting.
Thank you. Item Q. I'm sorry, Alderman Tompkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jessica, I just wanted to commend you for all the work that you did for this. It must have taken a lot of time. So thank you for going through something that hasn't been gone through for 40 years.
Item Q, request to approve resolution number 2024-17, authorizing the Economic Development Board, EDB, to expend funds directly from the city's Economic Development Fund, Fund 205, presented by Mary Jo Wheeler-Schuler, EDB Chairman. She's not able to be here this evening, so Steve is going to take over for her.
Yeah, a little background on that. The item was first supposed to be discussed on April 9th, our last meeting, and we did postpone it 2 weeks to allow one of our council members to be here in person. Mary Jo Wheeler-Schuler was at that meeting anyway. She spoke during public comment. I think fortunately, since she's not here right now, she did make a lot of the remarks that she wanted this body to consider. All the members of this body were participating in that meeting either in person or via Zoom. So hopefully you heard and were able to take to heart her comments at that time. I was thinking she might be here tonight. She did try and call me during the first meeting we had, the 5 o'clock meeting.
She did me too.
And didn't leave a message. I just tried calling her back a few minutes ago and didn't get her. So I'm going to cover my best, as best I can for this item. We do have members of the council who also serve on EDB, and that would be Russ Stauber and Andrew Reigel. But the premise of this is that the EDB has been talking a bit lately since the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee rejected a budget resolution for money to support the pickleball project. The question that came out of that is, what authority does the Economic Development Board have to spend funds from the 205, as we call it, Economic Development Fund? History on that fund is it was set up from an old RLF that we used to run, a city revolving loan fund to help businesses. We recycled the money, and over time it built up dollars for other uses. It also accumulated interest on the payments. And then when Central Wisconsin Economic Development Fund got their own loan fund going for all businesses in Central Wisconsin, we discontinued our RLF because the terms and conditions of the revolving loan fund that they had at the regional level were superior to ours. Why would you do a 4% loan here, for example, when I think at the time theirs was 2 or 2.5%? So we started sending businesses that way. We were able to take our fund and turn it into a general economic development fund. And that's what we call the 205 fund. So there was money there to begin with. The money that gets added now is almost entirely from the transfer of dollars we get from Marshfield Utilities, the utility dividend, although other monies do come into the program from time to time that also go into that kitty, if you will. The Economic Development Board gets a budget through the council. It used to be done a little bit differently. The monies used to come from utilities until last year and went directly into the 205 fund for use for economic development activities. Because of a policy change we made last summer, those monies, when they give them to us now, go into the general fund. And the Economic Development Board gets a budget approved by this body. The monies are then transferred to the 205 fund for the use of the board to do the items and activities that are listed. So for 2024, the Economic Development Board budget was $237,000 and change. So everything called out in that particular budget has been approved for them to spend, whether it be our contribution toward the business development position of Mackey, whether it be the facade grant program, whatever. Those were all detailed by line item as to how to spend that $237,000. The thought that the Economic Development Board has is that because they have other things that come at them during the year, things that come up, opportunities to grow our residential, industrial, and commercial base in some way, shape, or form, that they believe, since they are charged in the code, and I'm going to read this from a part of section 3-66 of the code. It says the Economic Development Board is intended to direct, oversee, and coordinate all economic development activities. And it kind of goes on from there. And it talks about, being able to have funds available to do that. But the other thing is, whether you're a department of the city, whether you're another committee, commission, or board, anything outside of the annual budget that's been allocated for anybody, a department or another body, is a budget resolution is required through the council to transfer monies. So if Tom Turchi in Public Works, had an item that he wanted to do, it wasn't in the 2024 budget, but it was an opportunity to spend $30,000 to accomplish something, we'd be in front of the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee and the council for a budget resolution to transfer monies from the contingency account or somewhere to cover that expense. And I think what the Economic Development Board is thinking here is, because they are tasked with the idea of, specifically, of encouraging and promoting economic development, because this fund is purely for that purpose, that they would like to see the ability to access those funds directly without having to pursue those avenues, without having to go forward with the budget resolution, that they have access to use the monies for the intentions of economic development, which is why they were created. So I'm trying to give my best balanced presentation of this so I can kind of speak to both sides of the issue. And as I said, I think Mary Jo did a good job of expressing her view and the view of the majority of the board 2 weeks ago. But I would take any questions you have. Otherwise, it's at your discretion tonight. We've listed it on the agenda as discretion of the council, which we do sometimes when it's not coming from staff, it's coming from outside of city staff. But the request is to authorize the Economic Development Board to expend funds directly from the city's Economic Development Fund, Fund 205, and it would be the approval of Resolution 2024-17 if you wish to approve that request.
Alderman Wagner.
Thank you, Mayor.
Order.
I spent 2 hours with
We need a motion.
Ms. Wheeler
Point of order, Your Honor.
this afternoon,
No, don't need a motion.
and was able to hear a recap of her ideas about why she felt they should have the right to commit funds out of the 205 fund without the council approval, without having to come back to the council for approval. Well, one of the good things about being around a long time is you remember things. I remember when we put the Economic Development Board together, that was not on the table. Never was on the table. I have since reviewed the duties of the Economic Development Board, and it says that they can direct funds and they can manage funds, but they can't give funds. There's a difference in that. So that was in it. Now the other thing is that the job of the Economic Development Board, as far as economic development projects are concerned, are summed up in 2 words, and that is review and recommend. They recommend to the council that funds should be spent, and they should do the other. They should also manage them once they're out there. I think I may yield the floor to Alderman Reigel, because I think he has some comments along the same lines of this, and I don't want to have to bore you with 2 sets of opinions. So I'll yield the floor now. Thank you.
Alderman Spiros.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. I did go and watch that meeting and did hear, the comments made by many members on that board. One of the things that they did bring up was an example. So, we give them an allotted amount of money for what we used to call the facade program. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it's called now because it'll always be called the facade program in my head. We give them a certain amount of money, and one of them made a point of, we get this money, it's definitely for facade improvement or whatever, but we still can't just approve these applications. It has to go back to the council. So that was one point that was made that I can kind of agree on. I feel like, yes, if we've given you 100,000, and I keep saying if we've given you, but if the money from the taxpayers and utility and things like that have gone to them, should they just be able to grant these applications? And in a way, I can kind of see the point of being able to do that. Beyond that specific case, I would hesitate in doing that. I understand the frustration, and one of the frustrations expressed was, look, we have these people come to us and they give this 15-minute presentation to us, and all we can do is stall them, essentially. And then it may be a no. So I definitely can understand that frustration, but that doesn't negate the fact that I think those type of decisions should still be made at the council level.
If I can I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Can I just address that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The first one, if I can, you made a really good point about the 2-part of this issue. The one part, talking to the city attorney, that it would be good if the council if your view on this is, and I agree with what you're saying, is that the money is given through the budget process, let's say 70,000 for facade grants, and then, we want to see the EDB able to carry that out and be able to allocate the money as they see fit, that a resolution giving them that express authority would perhaps be in order. In other words, the council saying, look, we are giving the EDB authority to make those allocations to the businesses as they see fit without our ultimate approval. That's different than what we're talking about here in this particular resolution that's related. But this resolution would say, look, the dollars in that fund are accessible for projects apart from council approval. And that is the difference. So I think what you identified is a good remembrance of what the two pieces really are.
Alderman Weigel.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and just to echo what Mr. Barr said, I mean, that's just, I understand that, but that's a separate discussion because what's being asked today is so much larger than just a material facade program type thing. So this is the third meeting that I've been in, possibly fourth to become the last council meeting where this has come up in a roundabout way. And the one thing I just want to reiterate here, because it's very easy to get bogged down in the additional details of where the fund comes from, where it goes, who funds it, is the question isn't any of that other stuff. And so far we haven't talked about it, but the question is, do we want to advocate? Do we as a council want to relinquish oversight authority to EDB to make full broad decisions without our say or approval of it? I mean, I'd argue no, just sticking to three main reasons here. First, checks and balance. We act as a checks and balance on everything here. So even something that's designated for the facade program or designated for something else, ultimately, it's our hind end on the line. We take the heat for poor decisions or good decisions. And one example of it is it's something as automatic as staff payroll. We still sign off on it. Finance budget personnel will recommend to approve it, but technically speaking, how it actually works is that we're giving the authority to say, yes, spend that money as such. So I don't see really a decision for that. It kind of brings into the next point then too of this would set a precedent for all boards and committees. Right now, each board and committee is an advisory board. They will give their opinion, and then it comes to council. We'll decide if there's something that looks off, we'll pull it out, discuss it further, and discuss it as well. And one of the points that one of the EDB members made, who's been on EDB since its inception, is that the last denial that prompted this whole discussion was the first time that he can recall where something got shot down. We defer to EDB virtually every single time. We defer to most committees and boards almost all the time. There are cases where we'll pull it out and discuss it, but that's good discussion, and we might revisit it, might send something back, but that's part of our job here to do that. And I'm trying not to get long-winded here, but this is one of those scary things that if we approve it, we're going to all of a sudden have a line of departments, of boards, of committees asking for the same power to do it. And so if we do grant this, which I don't think we should, but if we do, we better be prepared to justify saying no to any of those or saying yes to some of them too. So, I mean, this is something that's pretty much unprecedented. We're just giving them full authority to spend, which in this case is almost $550,000 that's in the EDB fund. I mean, no one's here saying, no, we shouldn't defer to EDB. We should. They spend more time looking at it. They understand it better. But at the end of the day, we're elected officials. They're appointed. And so that brings up the next point of the fact that this creates less transparency, becomes more opaque. That meets at 7:30 in the morning once a month. If someone wants to come and observe that, that's much harder to do or give their opinion or public comments. Meanwhile, we meet here every other week. They know where to find us. It's at a much more palatable time than 7:30 in the morning. So if there is a concern, they can come to us and tell us. We're elected officials. They'll keep us accountable. Whether we like it or not, that's part of our job. So we want to see transparency in there. And one of the points that was made in that conversation with EDB was, we're appointed official. Yeah, that's great, but you're appointed. I mean, and to the earlier comment today about, the fact that some of these appointed positions weren't, I'm paraphrasing here, very much so, sufficiently vetted. If that happens, and all of a sudden every board and committee now has that same power, instead of passing it through a consent agenda or something like that, we're going to basically be up here interrogating every single member that's on that committee, that's on that board, to see are they a good fit or not. We're going to ask to see resumes, CVs, letters of intent of interest. It's going to create a much larger thing for a small problem. And I say a small problem because what prompted this again was one vote against them, or us, in over, since 2012? That's pretty low rate of any pushback. So once again, I think we're relinquishing our duty. It's our job as elected officials here to oversee the spending of money. And I think if we approve this, we're giving that right up, and we shouldn't. We should own it. As good or bad and as tough or hard as it is, we should own the spending of money. And I'll be the first person here to say that, because I was the one that brought up the fact that we're already in the whole $600K from the beginning of the year. That's because we get held accountable for that. And so we need to be doing that too. So I'll stop now before I put everyone to sleep. But yeah, no, I don't think we should approve this at all.
Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that I agree with Mr. Reigel that for this 205 fund, we are given a budget at the beginning of the year. We approve that budget. To have spending that is outside of that budget and not have any oversight by the council would not be wise. But it would be good to also, and this is a separate issue, this is not what we're voting on tonight, but it was mentioned for the facade grant, that even the utility that uses money that is not taxes, even if they are going to spend more than $25,000, it has to be approved by the council. And that goes through the consent agenda. So to have the facade grant go through the consent agenda still gives it another layer of oversight. So those are just the two things I want to mention. Thank you.
Alderman Wagner?
Thank you. One point I forgot to make, that I don't think Andy touched on it too, but one of the complaints we're getting about EDB is that they don't have an economic development plan anymore. And basically, with what's supposed to pass for a plan is actually the budget, the annual budget itself. I don't think that plan has been updated since 2011, I believe, was the last time we did it. But the interesting thing is the responsibility for rewriting that is in the code, and it's the EDB that should rewrite that code. So when they complain to me about it, I think maybe they should get a mirror, and so we can see what's going on there. But that's, we need them to get back on track, and we need them to get back and have a workable plan, put everything together. We've got, the one good thing about the EDB is that it gets everybody at the table. It gets everybody at the table to make the decisions on what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And I think we're missing that. And I think we need to insist that they get busy and get us a new plan. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Moving on to item R, response to request for report on the Wenzel Family Plaza bathroom project presented by Justin Casperson, Parks, Rec, and Forestry Director.
Does it really say forestry?
No, it doesn't, but I just put that in.
I like that. You could add cemetery too.
Oh, a cemetery too, excuse me.
I'm just responding to a request to come back to give an update on Wenzel Plaza, I think in response to the comments that were made last week. I want to let everyone know that design architectural construction plans are finalizing. Our consultant or a company asked for final review by staff last week Friday, so we're hoping to go out to bid in the next 2 weeks and start construction as soon as possible. It will still be going in the location that was specified, which is just north of the pergola. The building's approximately 21 feet long by 10 feet high, so it's not a very large structure. The design is to blend in with the current architectural pieces, so that's to blend in with the stage and the pergola and the surrounding buildings. So we'll use the red brick and make it meld in and then stay in budget, which is $250,000. So I didn't really think have anything prepared, like a report, like formal, other than we're staying on direction. It's taken longer than we hoped. It started in 2022 and it's now 2024, and we've explored a lot of options. I think we probably looked at close to 11 different sites and buildings in the area, and explored a lot of options, talked to a lot of business owners, and there's still nothing that really will fit within our budget and what we're really looking for from a city's perspective. But I'm willing to answer questions or share information if you have them.
Alderman Reigel?
Thank you. This might have just gone over my head. I think you just mentioned it. It hasn't gone out to bid yet. It will be going out to bid here in the near term.
Yeah, I want to say within hopefully 1 week, it might be 2 weeks,
Oh, near future, like within a month?
very near future.
Okay. And then just that last comment you made there, just if you could expound upon it, that'd be great. So this is not the ideal solution to this, is that correct?
Well, ideal would be more money.
Right. No.
So yes, ideal means this is the best we can do
Right,
with our
so-
budget parameters.
Right, within the budget parameters, but if we had a larger budget, we'd be doing something totally different, is what
Well,
I'm
I think there'd be more options on the table. If you remember, we had a kind of lengthy discussion in closed session last summer about purchasing a building, and it was outside of our budget parameters, so we had to turn it down. So that's what I mean by that, like, if we had more money.
Awesome, thank you.
Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you. I am going to 100% agree with the Howards. I think this is the absolute wrong decision for the city of Marshfield. I think $250,000 for those toilets where they are is the worst decision we could make. I agree that we should be waiting and doing it right, and I think we are going to regret this in the future. So I'll leave it at that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, thank you, Justin. Oh, right away. Okay, Alderman Wagner, I just looked and didn't I? Just popped. Oh, goodness.
When and before what body we gave the approval for this thing?
I guess it depends on how you look at it.
No, I want to look at it, just, I want hard numbers, and I want to know why it's coming up now.
Well, it's coming up today. I guess it was requested by Alderman Varsho for a report, and then it was added to the agenda.
So how long ago when did we approve this?
When did we approve the
When did this body
restrooms?
approve?
It'll be during the 2021 CIP, probably 22 CIP and
So it was
23
put in the
CIP.
CIP and it wasn't actually acted on as a separate item, is that correct?
Well, it was also acted on in July when there was approval made by the council.
So you're saying that last July it came, the council and got approval then?
Yeah, it was in a closed session meeting, and then it came in open session. There was action taken. There was action taken to a number of boards and committees over the last 2 years, probably 3 years.
I have to say that I, generally speaking, I like to support the staff, but I actually support the Howards on this. I think it's, I was under the impression we were still evaluating and looking for places to put it. And I think there are some other members of the council who are wondering the same thing. And basically, if there was some way I could stop this little freight train from going, I would certainly do it, because I don't think that the damage to the, I do think the damage to the pergola would be architecturally significant. I really do. And I don't think this is the place to put it, and I never have. But the problem is I don't remember voting on it.
Alderman Tompkins?
Just in the defense of Parks and Rec, this was voted on. The money for this project was voted on through the CIP multiple times, $250,000. That's why the budget has been very strict, and that's why various options have been turned down. It was discussed in closed session, but also it's been on the Parks and Rec agenda many different times, and so that's come through the consent agenda, which we have approved. I think when we give staff direction and say, hey, you're going to get money through the CIP, and they start doing it through their committees and commissions, that we as a body need to pay attention to those consent agendas and not suddenly say, stop, because if at the moment we say you need to stop now, the city is still paying for the architectural plans. So money has already been spent on this project because we approved that money to be spent.
Alderman Spiros?
Thank you. I have just a couple of comments. I think all of us are still, yes, okay, Natasha just explained all the steps that it went through. But if we can get maybe Steve to put out an email in the next week or so. Maybe you can go back through dates and show that. I think it's just a sticker shock. I mean, to me, I think like $250,000 for a bathroom, and I've heard this repeatedly from people in the community. They're appalled. They don't like the idea. They think the price is ridiculous. I don't know if I think all prices are ridiculous right now. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I don't know, when you look at $250,000 to build a bathroom, of course that's ridiculous. Like you can build supposedly a whole house, right, for $250,000. That's what we're going to be told next, is that you can build a workforce house for under $250,000, but we're going to spend $250,000 on a bathroom. And I believe wholeheartedly that park needs a bathroom. You have small children that utilize it. They're wet. They're in bathing suits. Their parents want them changed. We live in a perverted world where you can no longer open the back door of your window door of your car and change them secretly behind the door. People don't want to do that. It's uncomfortable, and nor should they be forced to. But it's the price. It's the price. In addition to the location, I have mixed emotions on that. I certainly understand the Howard's concern. I think it's a valid concern. I just don't know. We're sort of limited where it could go. My preference would be that it would go along the alley somewhere, where the parking is. But that isn't. I guess being looked at, I don't know. So I guess my request would be for Steve to go back through and just kind of do an outline. And it's not anything urgent. I'm not saying you have to have it done tomorrow or anything like that, or even maybe Jessica could do it if she went through minutes. Maybe it's easier for her to do it. I don't know. Just to refresh everybody's memory. But I do feel like I cannot sit here and say that the public talks about this $250,000 price tag for a bathroom all the time, and they're in general not happy about it.
If it's okay, yeah, I'd be glad to do that for you and give you a timeline of what some of the meetings and approval dates have been or whatever on this project. But while we've been sitting here, Jessica's looked up and did find a date when it appears that there was an approval given. You want to maybe just touch on what you found?
Yeah, so at the July 25th, 2023 council meeting, you did discuss this in closed session. Coming out of closed session, Mr. Fire was absent from the meeting, Mrs. Spiros was absent from the meeting, but there was a motion by Werman, a second by Varsho to direct the Parks and Recreation Director to begin the process of soliciting bids for the Winslow Family Plaza restrooms with a 7-1 vote, the no vote being Mr. O'Reilly.
But that aside, I will do what you requested and look at, because I think there's been a history of some of the meetings and discussions that I can work with the city clerk's office. And
as a follow-up, was there a dollar amount tied to that vote?
Not to that vote. That was the CIP discussion that Mrs. Tompkins referred to.
Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you again. I'm curious how much we've spent on design on that. And I would also be curious if there's a way, even if we had to do it in closed session, if we could get an analysis of the other possibilities and what kind of costs we were looking at those. I'm hearing the same thing. People are frustrated. They know the situation with the city financially, and we're going to spend $250,000 on 2 toilets. Everybody acknowledges we need them at that park. In my opinion, it should have never been built without them. But the bottom line here is the people aren't happy about it. I don't believe it's going to serve much of a purpose there with the events we have there, which is actually what brought this forward when Alderman Fisher asked to move it up in the CIP to eliminate all the usage of the porta potties and try to resolve this problem. And here we're sitting with a couple toilets for $250,000. I don't think we're accomplishing anything that was brought forward to do. So I would request that we see an analysis of this, because I don't know how the breakdown was, but I know there has been multiple things looked at. But do we have the people making the acknowledgement of what that would actually cost to go that route? How did that break down? And it may have to be done in closed session, but I think it's very important for everybody here to understand that process and how that happened, because I'm blown away by this thing.
Alderman Spiros?
Just something Mike said made me think of something. Is there a way, or do you know, Justin, maybe you remember this, maybe you don't, when we did the porta bathrooms, and I'm not talking about the gross little blue single-sided bathrooms, I'm talking about the trailer bathroom, the nicer porta potty.
Yep.
Do you remember what the cost each year was for that rental?
We didn't do them there, and if it was rented, it was probably rented by the event coordinator. Might have been Main Street or Mackey who rented those. The city itself doesn't rent those. We rent them for the Wenzel facilities year-round, those two that are there, we rent those. But for any large events, the event organizers are responsible for paying for and acquiring those and deciding, number one, their location and their design, how fancy they want them or how not fancy they want them. So it's up to the event coordinators, but I don't know that number on the fancy portable toilets.
Okay, I would just be curious, like, if that would be something that we could explore and how long. I do not want those nasty blue side-by-side toilets. That doesn't serve a purpose. Nobody can change their child in there or gross. No one wants to really use them. But the ones that have heat and, little steps up into it and a tray to pull down to change your baby, that kind of thing. Just curious if we could figure out what that would cost to put that in the park. And how many years we could get that. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. Again, I'm just trying to be cognizant of the fact that in the public, I think this is one of the number one things being talked about is the expense of 2 toilets.
Andy, you got to take.
Yes, sir.
I want everyone to know this is not necessarily staff-driven. This was decided by the council a number of years ago. They asked for Wenzel for restrooms to be put in the plaza, and they decided a dollar amount and then added it into the CIP. And then it was proposed in, I'll say, 2025. And then the council said, we want that moved up. It was Alderman Fisher at the time to move it up to 2023. And at that time, we were directed to find a way to build restrooms in the plaza that is feasible and economical. So we started this process in 2022, and all things considered, we explored 11 options, which you now see in front of you, and all those options were exhausted, meaning they did not fit within the budget parameters for $250,000. I don't like the fact that the bathrooms cost that much. I was shocked when I saw that price tag. I don't know what other options we have. We can say, let's hold off, but I don't think the price tag is going to go down. That's my fear is now we're going to pay $300,000, $350,000, $500,000 for restrooms. I don't want that to happen. I can't control what the cost of materials and labors will be in the next 5 years. We did look at number 5, which was discussed quite a bit last week or 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, and we've exhausted that. Number one, the price tag for the building itself is outside of our budget, and number 2, just to remodel it is going to be outside of our budget. So we can't afford that building, much less to remodel it for $250,000. So if $250,000 is too high of a price tag, I don't know how we can do it by building somewhere else on the property or somewhere else outside the property. And I'm more than willing to figure out and explore options, but we've spent 2 years on it and talking to all these different business owners, but $250,000 is the best we can come up with. And I can look at those portable toilets you talked about, Alderman Spiros, to get with that number, but at some point we have to either move forward or maybe consider not going forward with it at all.
Alderman Wagner. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman O'Reilly. Pardon me.
Thank you. I am going to, I guess, stress again, it seems like, we were correctly stuck on that $250,000 number. But the part that it seems like we're missing is, do we go above and beyond that and extend this out somehow to get something that's going to actually serve the purpose? I do not believe, I don't even want to listen to the people once this thing goes up and they see that we spent $250,000 on this. And it's $250,000 that could be applied to something else. And that's why I'm asking for that analysis. What were we looking at? I don't think we've ever seen any of that information. It's just been driven by that 250 mark. So I would request that we get that information, what each of these locations, how you determined what the cost was, and what we're looking at to do it, so that we can make an educated decision on it, because I think we're kind of too laser focused on that 250, and I think we're going to get a subpar product for that beautiful park.
Go ahead, Justin, and then Alderman Wagner will be next.
In response to that, I mean, we're looking at the same building, but placed in different locations. I mean, look at number 2, it's the parking lot across the street. It's going to be the same building. It's going to cost the same. It's probably going to cost more because we got to get utilities across the street and further to that area. So it's going to cost even more just to get utilities. We're bringing utilities from the alley all the way over. That's kind of driving some of these costs. We don't have utilities conveniently located everywhere in the park. So there are some costs associated with just bringing utilities over and plus restoration of those areas. No matter where we put it, we're going to have issues with bringing utilities over and then restorations. And if we put a $250,000 bathroom and we take away parking stalls in that area, we'll really get blasted by the public. So I want to avoid getting double blasted. I'd rather just take my lashings just one at a time.
I'd like to just follow up quick and reiterate again, I would like to see the breakdowns on costs so that we can make a logical decision here. I am not stuck on that $250,000 mark. I think we can make a much more educated decision when we see a breakdown on all of these prices and how you came up with them.
Alderman Wagner.
Thank you. As everybody has reminded us since this thing started up, that the plaza, this is what they call placemaking in the city planning world. We discussed this with Wausau on their 4th Street area. And they didn't at that time, and I don't think they do yet, have bathrooms out there. And we were told, and our consultants were told, stay away from these things, because now you're incurring a liability and a risk and an expense for year after year after year. So when the original design came out, there were no bathrooms in there. And we had basically fought out this very same battle in discussion about whether or not we were going to do it and what the final design was going to look like. And I think there's a mentality going on here that's driving me a little bit insane, and that is that if we wait, we're going to spend $350,000 on it. If we wait, or if we incur more, if we try to move it around some more and try and fit it on, we're going to incur some more consulting firms costs and against this. And that's not the way I was raised. I was raised as, I've got $250,000 in my wallet. I come and I want to do something, and says, no, sorry guys, it's going to be $350,000. Say, oh, okay, I'll go get another $100,000 for you. No, we set a budget. It doesn't meet the budget. It's done. That's the way I was taught to deal with expenses that you didn't expect. And I just, this just floors me. I just can't believe we're even talking about it like this. I'm going to yield the floor and hope that somebody has an idea.
Alderman Spiros.
This is the last time I'm going to talk about this, I promise. When we bring this back, I would also like the opinion of our finance director on where the money would be, what it looks like to the budget, what's the impact overall. That's all.
Alderman Weigel.
Thank you. But just for clarification here, we're going out to bid in 1 to 2 weeks. So if we're going to change our minds here and withdraw what we've done so far, we should probably, there's a pun I want to use, but I probably shouldn't, but we should probably make a decision quick as far as reconvening and pulling back, if that's what we're going to do. But otherwise, it sounds like Parks already has it set up to go out for bid here. And
I'm at a loss because like we're going through this whole process and we have construction design done, we're going out to bid, but obviously I can't go out to bid with the sediment by the body.
Right,
So,
and that's my concern.
so I have to hold off on going to bid until whatever a decision is made by this group. But the decision was to build restrooms in that location and to come up with construction design cost estimates, or not estimates, bid documents to go out to bid.
Right, I guess that's kind of my point, that we came to a conclusion with that. There was a motion after a closed session, we approved it. And if we're changing our minds now, that's fine, we can change our mind. But if we're going to do that, we should probably change our minds in the same fashion of having another motion and then withdrawing that approval, not just sitting here complaining and then leaving parks kind of not knowing what to do exactly. We should make like a specific, motion to say, hold off for X amount of time, or let's get XYZ documents first and then revisit it. But I think just saying, look, this isn't going to work. And there are problems, and I get it. But as it stands right now, they have permission. And if we're going to say, hey, look, we're changed our minds, we're going to withdraw that permission, let's actually withdraw it.
I just want to say one thing back to the request that Councilmember O'Reilly made. We can do something like that. Just be aware as we do it that some of these buildings, because we were actually hopeful when we looked at some of the commercial buildings that there might be some opportunity there, some of those ones to the east of the plaza. But the decisions weren't made entirely based on cost. There were some logistical things. There were some creative ideas that business owners had in a couple of cases, like we could split off part of this building and you could just rent part of it or whatever. But now you're talking about logistically, okay, no, what's your area? What's our area? Is this really going to functionally succeed for all of us? So it may not be entirely dollars and cents. It might be other considerations, but we can certainly do that.
Any other discussion? Move on to item S, consideration of candidates. Thank you, Justin. Consideration of candidates to serve on the Ethics Board. Kevin Martin at 710 East Kelshed Street. Unfortunately, Kevin is not able to make it this evening. So you have before you his letter, and we are voting him as the alternate on the Ethics Board. We have a motion by Alderman Stauber, second by Alderman Giles. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Item T, request to approve the mayor's appointments of citizens to various committees, boards, and commissions, except for those noted in items U and V below, presented by me. We have a motion by Alderman Wagner.
Sorry, hang on one second. I'm catching the board.
Okay, motion by Alderman Wagner. And is there a second to that motion? Second by Alderman Spiros. Alderman Tompkins?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So this is something that Mr. Pinker talked about, and I too had a little bit of difficulty as a voting member to vote these in. I didn't have letters. It was really hard to know, like, if I'm going to vote and approve of these people. I don't have a lot of information about these people. So my request would be, in the future, can we please request letters from everyone who's applying and make that available to council members? I know some people didn't even write letters. So that would be helpful, because I'm giving an approval. I'm voting to say I approve of this person, yet I don't even know anything about the people. So that would be my request for the future. And if we need to put that into an ordinance, I know that in our city ordinance, it does speak about council members being able to read letters. So that would be helpful, just so that we have a little better due diligence for this process. Thank you.
Alderman Stauber?
First question is procedure. To the voting machine that I have, do I have the option to amend the motion? It just says I have the option to second the motion, which has already been seconded.
Were you wanting to amend?
Well, let me say a few words, and you can tell me, I can do a manual amendment if that's appropriate. First of all, I'll say that as elected officials, we are privileged and honored by serving with people on established committees who have the knowledge, experience, dedication, and passion to serve these committees, boards, and commissions. And I had the privilege of serving on the library board for a number of years. And I still take pleasure when I look at the consent agenda and I see the signature of the secretary, because it's a person I respected and still is slaving away working for the library board. I don't envy the job of the mayor in finding new talent and assigning people to committees, boards, and commissions. It's a tough job. I'll give you credit for that. But I think we have to be mindful of the retention and the experience, et cetera, of some of the membership. I do think that people that express an interest to serve in the public domain in some capacity should be taken advantage of and brought in and assigned to a committee where it's appropriate. But in this case, I think we're giving up a board member with 12 years experience, and if possible, I would like to make an amendment that Ms. Ruppel be reassigned or reappointed to the library board.
So just procedurally, the code it contemplates that the appointments are at the appointment of the mayor, subject to council approval. So a member can't be proposed by and I'm talking about a candidate cannot be proposed by a member of the governing body. You can certainly shoot down anybody that's proposed and do that appropriately or however you want to vote, but you can't really recommend or propose a candidate for appointment.
So would it be appropriate then for me to ask that the new appointee to the library board not be accepted by the council?
You can make that as a statement or argument regarding the subject that's there for the appointment. So what's in front of you is an appointment, and the body's going to vote on whether there's an approval. You make that as part of your argument or discussion in front of the body.
I assume you could actually even make a motion if you so felt led to approve all the appointments aside from the one that you're calling out.
He can actually request that any appointment be reviewed separately from the main motion without even amending.
Oh, that's right. There's already a motion on the floor. Yeah. Good point.
So if appropriate, I'll make a motion then that the appointee to the library be removed for consideration. And I mean that with all respect. I would just hope that we would take into consideration the, again, 12 years of dedication and doing a fine job on the board. Sir.
Alderman Fire?
I have one question. The person that's going to be appointed to the Police and Fire Commission, that's a 6 year. Does that come to a different meeting?
It's 3.
Okay, is it 5 year? But does that are we going to get a chance to take looking for people that want that job? I'm saying, because I hear a lot of scuttlebutt about the gentleman we were going to put on for another 5 years. So do we have a special vote? When is his term up?
That's being reviewed tonight as well. So if you wanted to have that reviewed separately, you could also ask that that be reviewed separate from the rest of the appointments.
Okay, I so moved it.
Alderman Tompkins?
So my question was for the gentleman who was being proposed for the Plan Commission, and I just have no information about that gentleman. So I would propose that we delay that appointment until we can receive a letter of intent or some sort of information. Thank you.
Alderman Varsho?
I understand everybody's thoughts and about this. particular topic. I spent 3 years on the library board with Zinn, and wonderful. But these are the mayor's appointments. She puts these together. She goes through all these. She sends them off to us, and we approve them or we don't approve them. This is a large vote that says on here, we're approving all of her appointments. Yes or no? If you want to approve them all, we approve them all. If you don't want to approve any of them, I don't see how picking one, and now we're picking one out, which, again, wonderful person, spent a long time there. We're picking one out. Now we're picking another one out. Now we're picking another one out. She has a job to do. She did her job. It takes a long time, I would assume, to go through all of the letters that would come in. I know for sure there were 9 people that wanted to get on Parks and Rec. Now she has to go through those, and she has to pick out those letters. So we're sitting here right now, and we are going after what her choices are for her appointments. We may not agree with them. We may be disappointed in them. And those people that have put in letters that did not get an appointment at all can apply for another position, can do that every year. But we're going to be picking on every single committee? I mean, is that something we really want to do? Do we want to pick on every single committee and say, well, we don't agree with the mayor on this one, so let's do this and let's review this. We don't agree with the mayor on this one, let's redo this, let's redo this. Do we really want to do that as a council? Do we want to do that? And if that's what everybody feels to do, that's fine, but I, for one, will not. I mean, I spent 3 years on the library board. I love Zinn, she's great. But the mayor has proposed this to us, and I'm going to accept what she has done and move forward. If there's an issue with any of my committees and a member of that during the first 2, 3, 4 months, maybe I bring that to her and say, hey, listen, this guy hasn't shown up for a meeting, or this person hasn't come to a meeting, or, something like that, then I can bring that up to her and bring it to the body here to remove them. But to do this is going to be, I don't know. That's all I got. Thank you.
Alderman Spiros?
I agree with Brian. I feel like at this point, this is starting to become some personal biases by this body. I mean, if you're going to be concerned because somebody's getting appointed to a board because you don't know them, do you know every other appointment? And if not, then why that particular board, or why are you picking that particular person out? I don't like that idea. It's all or nothing. I mean, if you want resumes on the people you don't know, then you should be requesting them on every single appointment she made. You shouldn't just be picking a committee you specifically have an interest in. As far as the comments on the gentleman regarding the Police and Fire Commission, this has come up over and over and over again. I believe this comes up because he was involved in a very controversial issue that occurred in this town, and he was a key player in it. He was one of the people who made the complaint. The complaint was justified. We voted on it. And if you continue to hang out with people who are friends with the person who was removed, of course you're going to hear negative things. And that's fine. Nobody's picking your friends, but you should base your decisions on the person's performance. And if there's a problem with the performance, that should be brought forward by the chair of whatever committee you're talking about. I mean, I happened to serve on a committee, and there was somebody appointed that didn't show up for a single board meeting, not one, over the past year. The committee chair should have brought that forward to the mayor. She wouldn't have known that. She doesn't go to all these meetings, but that didn't happen. So, there's a lot of things that can happen, but I agree. I don't know how you can sit here and pick particular people and say, well, I don't know them, so I need their resume. But this other committee, I'm not that interested in. I don't know them either, but I'll let that one slide. That's kind of how it's coming across, and I think it's just a slippery slope.
Alderman Stalbert?
So I could have misheard the city attorney, but I thought he said we had the prerogative to make these changes.
The procedure is that the appointments are proposed by the mayor. Your decision is whether or not you approve them or not. It's not to substitute anybody that is proposed as a potential candidate.
Okay. We're not talking about Parks and Rec. I mean, we don't need the drama. We're not talking about 9 people. That's not being discussed. So, and we're not talking about pet membership. We're talking about retention and respect for people that have served, committed, well, I'm talking about, I don't know what they're talking, my concern is that we got a person with 12 years of commitment to a committee and doing a fine job. And for reasons unknown to me, we're removing that person from that committee. That doesn't seem fair. And I'm not asking for preferential treatment for, I don't know the other nominee, but I just think it's not wise for us to kick someone to the curb after 12 years of service for no reason. So if the action that needs to be taken is that we up or down this motion, I guess so be it. I won't support it.
Alderman Fire?
I want to add a little history to this Police and Fire Commission. The last time the mayor appointed a gentleman, which was Mike Meyer, it was a mayor's appointment. Mr. Wagner removed it from that, and we went for separate action, and we went to separate action, and I believe the vote was 5-5, and the mayor did not break the vote. Then at the next time we had to appoint that this gentleman that we have now was brought up as appointment, and we approved it, and I don't think I voted for it. But the reason is when you have somebody that's been dedicated to the city, the gentleman the mayor did not break the tie on, had about 30 some years in government, 43 with everything else he did. He's been on the Police and Fire Commission a long time. And I didn't think it was fair then, and I think that we should still have a vote, and we should still see if there's another candidate available for that position before we put this gentleman back in. Because I don't think he's as conducive to that commission as you think he is. And I end that with that.
Alderman Tompkins?
So I would just like to clarify that I did go through this list, and I did ask about the identities and look into the various people. And I actually did personally meet with the mayor. And for this one gentleman on the Plan Commission, there was no letter, and the mayor also did not personally know the person. So this is not a personal thing. I just would like to have more information because I have looked at the information for everyone else. Thank you.
Alderman Spiros?
Okay, follow up to just a couple of things. Russ, I actually agree. I think when someone has that many years of experience, and like I said, they're doing a good job in the position, that's a different story than just going through and saying, well, now the history is, well, we removed somebody else, so now I want to look at removing this person. Seems almost retaliatory. It maybe isn't, but it can kind of come across that way. And especially when you back it up with the evidence that, well, we removed Mike Myers 5-5, and he was really good at it. And I didn't think that was right to do because he had tons of experience, but I'm going to do it now to Randy, who also has tons of experience. So the argument is not making sense to me. That's all I'm trying to say. This is a difficult job. She gets a lot of applicants. Sometimes you need new blood. Sometimes you want to keep the old. It really, really is dependent, I think, on the chair. If there's a big issue with somebody, they should report that. If she doesn't have that reported to her, she doesn't know. And I do believe in people who have served on a committee and have done a great job, and they seek to continue to serve. My hope is that yes, they get to continue to serve. So I'm agreeing with you on that point. I'm just saying this nitpicking and going through now and picking different names for different reasons gives a bad impression. Again, the mayor's, this is the task that the mayor was given. I know that she's thoughtful in all decisions she makes, and I believe she was thoughtful in the decisions that she made when she put these appointments forward.
Any other comments? I'm going to recuse myself, and the president, please come up, and I'm going to sit in your seat, and I'm going to explain a couple of things to you folks. Once again, as last week, I did not have to explain to any of you my decision, but I did out of respect for all 10 of you and the city and everyone else. So, Brian? Good evening, my name is Lois Teestrake. I'm the mayor of Marshfield. Hope I can get through this. Deep breath. Number one, this year I decided as a smart mayor, and I feel this is through the smartness and my heart, I had just removed everybody's names. So all I was doing is looking at their qualifications. I feel that is a huge part of this. And yes, I am not happy. Nobody's come to tell me anything. Rebecca just brought up that issue. I had no clue. Maybe if I had known, I would have done something, or no, I wouldn't have done it. I would have asked the chair of that committee to come to me and say, let's take care of this, okay? The reason that Zinn is not on the library board, and, oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart, pardon me. Justin, please help me. Yes, the reason that Jane is not on, Jane has served for 22 years as a marvelous advocate for the library. More for the zoo, excuse me, I'm sorry, Park, Rec, and Forestry. If we don't move forward, we can't go anywhere in the city. There were 7 applicants for the Park, Rec, and Forestry. There were 6 applicants for the library board. Yes, Jill, I know these are the people. These are part of your, but again, if we don't move forward, if I would have brought both of those people back on, what about the other 5 that seeked out? Do you know how many committees I had to find? Plan Commission was one of them. 4 others were other ones. Some of them I have no idea. Like Jess says, you know what I could do? Go right through the phone book and just say, I'm gonna call this guy and say, would you get on this committee? Because that's kind of how it works if you don't have an idea of what's going on, okay? Out of respect for Zinn and for Jane, I just feel that if we don't move forward with some new people, no one's gonna come up. That's my fear. Like I said, I had to find 7 people. Last year, I had to find 6 people after you guys approved this because I couldn't find anybody. Nobody came up. Nobody had any ideas. If you don't think that's hard, I don't know what to say to you people. But think about that. And again, Jill and Justin, my heart goes out to you because I know these people are dynamite. I know this with all of my heart and all the sincerity in my brain. But if we don't move forward in the 21st century, we're going to be stuck right here, just like the bathroom issue. Darn it, right? As far as Randy, I trust in Randy. As Rebecca said, he's been here. Yes, there have been issues, but who doesn't have issues, right? And if we don't look at somebody that's got it going, what do we do? And if something happens, of course, come and say, hey, this isn't working. And I think that would be the greatest thing since sliced bread. If you come to me and tell me, okay, Evan Dayton is not working out. Well, then we go back to Zinn, obviously, because she is the person that was there before. But if we don't give someone new a chance, like me as mayor, I didn't do any of this stuff before I became mayor 2 years ago. I was never serving on a committee. I was never on a board, never on a commission. I just dove in and learned what I could. And I think I'm doing a pretty darn good job, if I have to say so myself. And I don't give myself credit, but I really feel that I am. And with what I'm doing, I feel I'm doing the right thing. And I respect, again, all of you. Like last week, I didn't have to say my reasons, did I? Did I? Please, did I? But you know what I did because out of respect for all of us. So that's what I'm going to say. And I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just here to let you know the reason why. And this is the hardest task as mayor. I hope people realize that this is the hardest task because I'm taking people away. Oh, yeah, she could serve another 20 years, sure. But what about someone new? Maybe got fresh ideas, something different. And there I will end my technically, no.
Everybody vote, you vote. We're gonna let him continue to chair.
And I'm just going to repeat the motion so everyone is aware. We are voting on the mayor's appointments with the exception of Library Board, Police and Fire Commission, and City Plan Commission. Council President, I turn it over to you. The motion right now is to vote on the mayoral appointments with the exception of the Library Board, the Police Fire Commission, and the City Plan Commission.
That's an amendment.
It's sort of like the consent agenda where you can just pull items. So those three have been pulled to be reviewed separately. We'll look for motions for those after we vote on these.
We did not vote to,
Your mic isn't.
Your mic, please.
This motion is not to take them out. The motion is to assume that we voted to take them out. And I would much rather prefer that a motion, an amendment be made to the original motion.
You can do that. You can do that. You can also remove one, and we will be looking at those individually next. If you would prefer an amendment right now, that's fine.
I disagree, but I'll.
You may make an amendment to the motion if you would like.
I agree with him. Mr. Wagner is the one that's on the board making the motion, and I am the second. His motion was to approve the appointments, all of them. So now you're telling us that's what we're voting on, a motion that says we're voting to approve it, except with these three withdrawn. That's usually made by an amendment to a motion. Where's the amendment at?
If someone can make that amendment, but because
if nobody made the amendment, did anyone make
it can be done both ways with these. We can make the amendment if somebody would like to make the amendment.
But there is no amendment right now. The motion right now is to approve the appointment as written in this document.
Correct.
That was the motion. So it is not to approve. The motion right now is not to approve it minus the library, the plan, and the fire. No.
It's similar to the consent agenda. When someone removes a consent agenda item, that's how this can be treated, but you can absolutely do it with the amendment as well. And if you prefer that way, somebody can push their button to make the amendment.
So right now, the motion is what?
To approve the appointments minus those, unless someone wants to make the amendment to make it prettier.
Cap, can you please clarify? Because that is not making sense to me. Mr. Wagner made the motion and he never said in his head, let's remove these three. I seconded it and I did not agree to that. So what is going on right now?
It's because of the way that this is worded in here that you're looking at all of them. It's treated as I'm sorry. Well, I'm on, but it's treated as similar to the consent agenda. But to clarify this, I recommend that somebody make that motion to amend, and you can move forward that way on treating it as an amendment. The reason that it wasn't being done that way is because the first person to bring this up was Alderman Stolber, and he asked about that, whether he should make an amendment, and technically he could remove that because it was treated very similar to the way you have your consent agenda. You were voting on everything in one place as if it was, think of how we've done this in the past, when you're going to vote on something and you have all of the candidates approved and you're voting, so it's like that. But here, why don't you, whoever wants to do it, make an amendment. Right now, what's on the table is a blanket motion to approve everybody. If somebody wants to break that out, then I would recommend you make a motion to amend the current motion to break out anybody that you wish to do it. We're just going back and redoing the same thing, but it'll be easier.
It's yours if you want it, Mike. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we amend the motion. To remove the three, right?
You got it. And then we vote on that motion.
When we get a
Thank you,
second.
Mr.
When we get a second. Because the
there a second to that?
chairperson cannot see this, there's a motion by Alderperson Fire and a second by Alderperson Stauber to amend the main motion.
All,
Please vote. Motion passes 5-4 with one person absent.
can I go back to the motion, right? For the,
Correct.
to approve them without the three?
As now approved as amended.
Yep.
Okay, now we will vote on approving the mayor's appointments minus the 3 committees. A motion by Mr. Wagner, second by Ms. Spiros. Please vote. Motion passes 8-1 with one absent.
Item U, request to approve.
We need to deal with the 3 that were removed first.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so who would like to make the first motion with the 3 committees that were pulled out? Ms. Spiros.
I'll make a motion to approve Randy Gershman to the Police and Fire Commission.
Motion by Ms. Spiros, second by Mr. Wagner.
Hang on one second.
Or should I just go to what the,
We had somebody else who was already trying to make a motion.
okay. My
I'll
apologies.
yield, that's fine.
Okay, motion by Ms. Spiros, second by Mr. Wagner to approve Randy Gershman to the Police and Fire Commission. Please vote.
Discussion.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Any discussion? As I see none, please vote.
Nope, there's discussion.
I didn't.
I think that we should look at this a little bit longer. I think that for this position, it's going to be a 5-year appointment and a very important commission. And I think that we should at least go a week or 2 and see if we get any people that are interested in this position. And if we get candidates, we can vote that way. I don't think that we should approve this right now because I look back at how it was handled last time and I think we shouldn't have handled it this way. I think we should allow people to if they want to come on this board, they should be given a chance to get on this board.
We already had a motion in a second, right?
So right now we have a motion and a second to approve.
Mr. Gershman for the Fire and Police Commission.
Correct.
Can I make an amendment to this to table this until it goes further on? What I'm requesting?
On the table, yeah.
Put it on the table, yeah. So we would go back.
Can you just vote?
It's only be a couple weeks.
Is your amend button there now?
Yes.
Amend, take precedent over, or a motion to table takes precedent over.
So Mr. Fire is amending to table the vote for Mr. Gershman for the Police and Fire Department for a couple weeks. I would assume at the next meeting. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Tompkins. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, no, hang on, okay. Seeing none,
Rebecca, you're trying to.
Ms. Spiros.
I think these buttons aren't working quite right tonight because sometimes they show up and sometimes they're not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we already have applicants for that spot?
No.
Mayor, weren't there other applicants?
Yes, there were 3 other applicants, but they were all either firemen or policemen or directly related to the police and fire. And as I started my first term as mayor, I promised that I would not put another policeman or fireman. We need to have regular people on this commission. We have firemen and policemen that come to these meetings and talk about what happens. But I feel these 5 people should be regular people from the city to make these decisions. And that is because I'm just afraid if we have too many fire or police, it's gonna do this. Okay? And we need to keep it, because we're the ones paying the wages and the taxes. That's just, and I'm not even gonna say that's wrong, because I really feel that that's the strongest. I don't know how many times we've had a policeman or a fireman on, and I really wish that I would have done a little research before this meeting so that I could have actually showed y'all if we've had a policeman or a fireman. We do have a retired policeman on right now, Steve Meeks, yes. Yeah. I'm not sure how he got on, but that's the way it was. And that's my feeling, only because I really feel that it needs to be regular people on these committees, because we're the ones that are paying their wages and paying the taxes in the city. And I really think it should be our decision to move these things forward. And please, correct me if I'm wrong. Give me an argument that would change my mind, because you know what? There's nothing that's complete in this world, is there? Every day things change. I know that from the last year, obviously. So please, if there's something that you can bring and shed light on it, please do, because I feel that I'm as transparent as they come. I have reached out to everyone that has called me on the phone. I've reached out to everyone that has done things and talked to me about stuff. I can't solve every problem, but at least I try. Or if I don't know, I'll send them to Steve, send them to Hap, send them to Jennifer, send them to whoever. So that's what that's my stance on it. But you know, that's how it rolls, I guess.
Mr. Fire.
It's not my nature to go against the mayor. I've been on you quite a while, and I usually don't pick a fight with the mayor, and I'm not going to pick a fight now. But I want to know one thing. Why were we not informed that there were 3 people that wanted to get on this commission? If we did not see that there were 3 people that sent in letters that wanted to get on, we can't. I don't think the mayor can make a decision if they want to accept just because they were a former firefighter or a former policeman. That should be our decision to make that, because we're the ones that put them on the commission. So if you had three people, we should have had a chance to vet them and see which one's which.
So then I have to do every single committee that way. That means every single committee that comes forth, like the 9 people on Justin's, the 6 people on Jill's. And that would take, I'm not even gonna say, who cares how much time it would take, but every single committee would have to be done that way. We can't just pick and choose one committee or 2, correct? And I guess as the mayor, this is part of my job. Again, the hardest part of my job. And it really, truly is. And I should not be sitting here, should I? Nope. Probably not. Okay, I apologize.
Out of order again.
If you want to pick on me, I'll make a quick comment.
Okay. Hang on, Mr. Stauber. I'm going to have the city attorney make a quick comment.
Just to clarify, and this is really on code and statute as well, that the appointments are actually done as part of the authority of the mayor to make the appointments. So it's not a matter that the mayor comes up with candidates and then you folks vote on it. What really the procedure is, and I can draw this parallel, we see it all the time. Maybe this is a nightmare parallel draw, but we see it all the time right in the media where we have an appointment from the administration for the person who's going to be on the Supreme Court. We see it. That's not for then the Congress to decide who's actually going to be on the Supreme Court. It's only whether or not they're approved or not. We're in the same kind of world here. The executive mayor in that position is appointing a person. You folks are deciding whether or not to approve it. So the fact that there were other applications, we just haven't had to deal with it this way because it wasn't as controversial in the past, but it's whether or not you approve it. It's not that all applications should go to you and then you pick between those potential applicants. It's a appointment proposal and a approval or no approval.
Mr. Stauber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to put in a word for the nominee for the Fire and Police Commission. I've known him for many years, and I have a lot of respect and admiration for his ethical standards, and he's been through some challenging times on that body. And I think he made the right decision, so he has my 100% support for reappointment.
All right, I don't see any more discussion. So right now we are voting on the motion to table the appointment of Mr. Gershman to the Fire and Police Commission for 2 weeks. Motion by Mr. Fire, second by Ms. Tompkins. Please vote. That vote fails, 3-6.
Now we go back to the original. Yep.
Or back to the original.
We will, hang on, just waiting for Jessica to catch up with the system here. Now we are voting on to approve Mr. Gershman to the Fire and Police Commission. Motion by Ms. Spiros, second by Mr. Wagner. Any discussion for this? I see no discussion. Please vote. That motion passes 7-2. All right. I believe we could probably move to the aldermans that brought up the specific.
Yeah, there were two others, library board and.
Mr. Stauber, would you, or do I just?
I'm waiting for the green light here.
Okay.
I will make a motion to reappoint Ms. Rupel to the library board.
You can't do that.
You cannot ask to.
Oh, I cannot.
You can only confirm the mayor's appointment of Mr. Dayton.
You already took it out.
And I'll withdraw my motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Rigel. Mr. Rigel, what would your motion be, sir?
I'll move to approve the mayor's nomination. Excuse me, appointment.
For which board?
Library.
Thank you.
Mr. Rigel has made a motion to approve the mayor's appointment for the library board, second by Mr. O'Reilly. Any discussion? I see none. Please vote. That vote passes 6-3.
Splat.
Yeah, yep, that's fine. I know you are. We have a motion by Ms. Spiros. What's your motion, Ms. Spiros?
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's appointment to the Plan Commission.
Motion by Ms. Spiros to appoint the mayor's appointment to the Plan Commission. Mr. Rigel, is that your second?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Rigel. Any discussion?
I'm trying to amend, but I can't hit the button.
Ms. Tompkins.
Thank you. I move to table this until we can have a letter from the appointee, just because I did try to do my due diligence and there was no letter, and also because the mayor does not know this person, so we have no information. So I would just move to table this to the next meeting, and that we would be presented with a letter so that we can actually make an informed vote. Thank you.
We have an amendment to the motion by Ms. Tompkins and a second by Mr. Stauber to table this nomination until the next council meeting. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Rigel.
Thank you, Mr. President. When's the next meeting for the Plan Commission? I guess what I'm getting at is how urgent is this? Is this something that needs to be filled yet this week, or is this something that can be put off for 2 weeks?
Yeah, the next meeting of the Plan Commission is a special meeting on Monday, May 6th. So a little bit less than 2 weeks from now. The next regular meeting is on the 21st of May.
So it would come before the next council meeting if that's the case?
Yeah, which would be on May 14th.
Thank you.
Ms. Tompkins?
But we would assume that a quorum would already be there, even if they were missing one person. Is that right?
Right now for the special meeting on May 6th, we have 4 members, yes, one member no, one other member we haven't heard from, and then, of course, the pending appointee. So we do have a bare quorum at this point for that special meeting.
All right, seeing no other discussion, the amendment to table is by Ms. Tompkins and second by Mr. Stauber. Please vote. Motion passed 5-4 to table the nomination until the next council meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Item U, request to approve the mayor's appointments of Ryan Niehaus to the Board of Review for a 5-year term ending in April of 2029. Requires a 2/3 vote as outlined in section 2.88 of the Marshfield Municipal Code. The reason this is brought up is because Ryan does not live in the city limits, but he does own many properties. He is a construction worker, and this is what we need on the Board of Review. We have a motion by Alderman Stauber, second by Alderman Weigel. Any discussion? Alderman Tompkins?
I just want to note that there were no other people who applied for this position because we have to meet 2 qualifications if someone lives outside the city. One, if no one else applies, then that's no problem for someone who wants to be on the commission who lives outside. But then the second qualification would be if there was someone in the city who applied as well, then we would need to show that the person living outside the city had significant difference in qualifications or experience. But we don't have to do that because this only one person applied.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes. Request to approve the mayor's appointment of Linda Rayburn to the Airport Committee for a 3-year term ending in April of 2027. Requires a 2/3 vote as outlined in section 2.88 of the Marshfield Municipal Code, presented by me as mayor. And the reason why we has a special on her is because she also does not live in the city limits. The gentleman who has been on the committee decided he did not want to be, and Linda's the only person that put her application forward, and she works closely with NASA. So I felt that she was a great candidate for the Airport Commission. We have a motion by Alderman Giles, second by Alderman Tompkins. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Suggested items for future agendas? Seeing none?
Oh, wait, I did have one. Sorry.
Pardon me?
I did have a suggested item.
Okay, I don't see your light up, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did it because I can only amend. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it's like, we've alluded to before, it's been goofy tonight. And maybe it's not necessarily needed for an agenda at this point. Maybe something just for staff to look into and then report back. But one of the comments that I've heard throughout tonight was, as far as appointments, seeing the letters or something like that. I don't know if there's a policy, if there needs to be a policy, but just something that would avoid any unnecessary discussion. So if there is an appointment, let's say this time next year, and they have a letter, if the method of viewing it is for the council member to come view it specifically here in person, so be it, that's what it is. But it's something, some formality to it of this is how you do it, this is how you can see it. So if some council member chooses not to show up, they can't complain. If someone does, they can say, okay, this and that. But just so there's some rule, I guess, so to say. So there isn't just like any concern about picking and choosing, but there is this, so everything's available for that. That's all, just a suggestion, maybe looking into. And if it amounts to a policy or something like that, great. If it's not, and we just say, hey, we're going to do it this way, then that's fine too. But just a thought. So do with that what you will. Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin Statute, Chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Relocation or communications department and multiple development projects in TIF districts. We have a motion by Alderman O'Reilly, second by Alderman Tompkins. All those in favor to go into public closed session, please vote. We are in closed session. 5-minute break.
Stop